Hello, my name is Nate Hudak, and I am honored to be the interim principal at Minter Creek Elementary School, which means that in that role, I'm excited to share with you our School Improvement Plan, or SIP, for the current 25-26 school year. We'll start with an overview of our three goals for our school improvement plan here for Dolphins, and then we'll speak a little bit more about each goal afterwards. But two of these are academic goals that kind of mirror each other. For language arts and mathematics, our goal is to increase our percent of students who are proficient or distinguished by the end of the year by at least 6% over where they were last year. And that's as measured by students who complete the year-end state testing, which is called the Smarter Balanced Assessment, or SBA, completed by all students in grades 3, 4, and 5. So you can see for language arts, our target percentage to be above is then around 60% for language arts, and for math, it's around 62%. Our third goal is related to attendance, which kind of ties into students feeling like they're motivated to be at school, they belong at school, and they want to be here doing their best every day. And our goal is to increase our attendance by 5% of regular attendance. Regular attendance means students who attend at least 90% of their school days, because research shows broadly that once students start missing at or above 10% of school days is where it starts to have really negative outcomes on their education longitudinally. So those are overall our goal percentages. Again, with each one of these goals now, we're going to look a little bit closer to see what our plan was at the start of the year, how it's going now at about a quarter mark into the school year, and our next steps as we keep going through the school year. You'll see that as a theme of coming back to these cyclically and seeing how things are going and how we want to monitor and adjust each of these goal areas through the year. We'll start with the language arts goal. Our plan at the start of the year, as developed by our building leadership team, was to develop writing rubrics and exemplars for narrative, informational, and opinion purposes, the three different writing purposes. This actually stemmed from work that team began last year and continued on through this year as part of a mastery-based learning collaborative grant that is being worked on with schools across Washington State, with coaching provided to those schools, release time for teachers to do this work all together. And it ties in really well with the second part of our plan we found, which is implementing core knowledge language art, or CKLA, as our core curriculum for language arts with nearly all of our students. TK doesn't use CKLA, but all of their students K through 5 do follow CKLA. Because one thing that our teachers found as they started implementing CKLA for the first time this year is that, for example, with writing tasks, they give them a prompt, such as this one, choosing your favorite character and writing an opinion paragraph on why they're your favorite, but it didn't have any examples of what a finished paragraph could look like. And it's really important for students to have exemplars of here's what that work looks like when it's completed. That helps to guide them alongside the rubrics so that they have kind of a checklist of what should be in there and a vision of what that looks like when it's finished. So when our teachers found that they didn't have that as part of the CKLA materials, we did some structured time using AI tools and collaborating with each other to develop some exemplars for those different writing tasks as we go. So far now, a quarter of the way through the school year, those rubrics are complete for different types of writings, and exemplars are drafted for those writing tasks up through their current unit of study. And for most classes, they're in their second or third unit of CKLA right now. And we are tracking that work even vertically as well between grade levels. And you can see from our youngest TK students up through our fifth grade students to make sure that as students progress through those grades, the expectations for their writing rubrics continue to increase in difficulty and following with those Common Core standards with it. And so far, the results have been really positive, with over 80% of students are generally showing mastery on the CKLA end of unit assessments through their first one or two units that they've completed. So that's really good progress so far, especially when you keep in mind that our goal with 6% growth would put us at over 60% of students showing mastery, which is more challenging at the end of year standardized assessment than in a unit assessment through the year, but still very encouraging progress, especially because, and this ties into our next steps, for students who aren't yet showing mastery, we are implementing this system where we'll be able to come through and look cyclically through our win time or what I need time that's 30 minutes every day and create different groupings of students that can continue to work in areas that they either need extra support or that they can continue to extend their learning if they're ready to do so. So we're going to have our first quarterly collaborations coming up later this month, which will be grade level teams together with our math and reading interventionists. And they meet for an extended 2 hour block to go through all the students in their grade, make sure they know their current levels, what the best group is for them for targeted work, and then what are the actual tools that they're using, the materials that they're using as part of our new curriculum to do that intervention work with students. Um, More broadly, also a next step is going to be our teachers are feeling encouraged by this writing work that they're doing with language arts, and they see a benefit now to extending it from not just language arts, but into science as well. So science curriculum in elementary schools lands primarily on our grade level teachers, and so they're seeing a benefit to using writing rubrics for informational text and extending that to the scientific practice, which is writing claim evidence reasoning, is the language from Next Gen Science Standards, so that those two are more closely aligned. And in addition to that, as they're drafting those new rubrics and exemplars, they're also going to work on aligning our science topics to our language arts curriculum. So CKLA progresses in its set order from unit to unit very intentionally, but our STEM scopes is our science curriculum units, can be adjusted or moved around in where they land during the school year. They don't have to be in any sequential order. So we're looking at ways that they can align better. For example, when third grade is doing a unit around volcanoes and informational texts, then there's a science unit around earth science with different landforms that aligns really well to that. So they'll align those for more cross-curricular work for students, while they're also building more informational writing with claim evidence reasoning into science lessons as well. Shifting next to, oh, that was just popping into one of our rubrics there. Shifting next to math as our next area for our plan at the start of the year. And this comes really from looking at last year's standardized assessment data, was fractions stood out across the board as the biggest growth area across all of our students. That really is in elementary school, third, fourth, and fifth grade, do more explicit standards around fractions, starting from just putting them in order and knowing if they're equivalent up through their four basic operations, add, subtract, multiply, divide. But in addition to that, for our younger students, focusing on the prerequisite skills to fractions. So some of those are like place value units, with knowing that there's one that go into 10 and how that gets represented visually or in a number, or also pictures that show how you break up a larger or bigger shape into smaller, simpler shapes, like with this pizza, saying that there are 4 slices out of 8, or half of the pizza, or a quarter of the pizza, to build those equivalency skills from an early age. And so far with this fall update for fractions, those topics are beginning soon for the intermediate grades 3, 4, and 5. Younger grades are already finishing up some of their place value topics, and then later in the year they'll go into those simple and compound shape topics. But for our upper grade teachers, this is going to be much more of an area of focus as they get into more fraction-based standards in the next quarter of the year, which will extend into the third quarter of the year as well. We're also excited. A new thing that we've added in for math specifically is that there are now that what I need time groups for math intervention as well, up to 4 days per week. So previously we had WIN interventions, but only focused on reading and literacy. So this year, thanks to our partnership with our communities and school coordinator, Sarah, is an experienced math educator. So she is leading some small groups similar to our reading small groups, specifically around math with that WIN time. So that lets us get a little bit more tiered leveled intervention in for students who need it in math. Next steps that we're looking forward to, especially after the positive results from CKLA so far in language arts, is exploring the core curricula and possibly adopting a new one district-wide for math as well, with the opportunity to pilot some curricula later this winter that our teachers are really excited about. And also in alignment with that WIN time being more math focused, we're also spending some time exploring more intervention tools. Like iReady does something called the Teacher Toolbox, and you can see a screenshot of it here, where it really ties into here's the standard. here is different ways that you can teach, assess, and have students work in small groups in really differentiated ways. Everything from an interactive tutorial that they can do collaboratively, through a reteaching that they do as a small group with a staff member, or extending their learning or just ready to reinforce learning that's already pretty solid for them that they can do more independently with just check-ins from teacher. So that's a really promising tool that our teachers are going to be spending more time exploring and seeing how that fits into their math instruction. And then similar with language arts, coming back to that theme of being cyclical with those interventions. So just like they're meeting as teams to review their language arts data, they're going to be using that same time to look at math data as well, together with the math and reading and interventionists so that they're all getting the students where they most urgently need to be for that next targeted instruction for the next quarter of the year. And then those teams will meet again in February and again in April to review that data, how it's looking at that point, and make those broader adjustments as needed. After going through those two academic goals, we're now going to shift into, oh, sorry again, shift into our final goal, which is the attendance goal. So our overall plan, and this is really a strength of Minter that I've seen since coming here from the start, is that it is such a welcoming, inclusive environment for all students. And we really wanted to highlight that more and more with lots of special events for students to look forward to, including like special recognitions for individuals and groups or school-wide events that are going on. Just different opportunities for students to be really excited about something that's going on in school. And part of my background has been primarily in secondary school administration to this point, and I've seen how important it is in middle and high schools to have those extracurricular events and clubs and special events to keep students really excited and talking about what they're excited about at school that day, week, or month. So we're working on bringing that more into the elementary level now too. And already it's going great. So there's now a celebration system in place for each class school-wide. You can see a couple of examples here with like a wheel that gets spun when the class earns it with different prizes on it, or another class that has to fill up the reward jar, and then they have a class predetermined reward that they get at that point, and then they start filling up the next jar or start working towards the next wheel spin. We also have a school-wide recognition system that's in alignment with our expectations of doing our dolphin best, being respectful, encouraging kindness, staying safe, and trying your best. And students earn individual recognitions for that with a winner drawn every morning on announcements with it. We've also had at this point already about 8 weeks into the school year, 4 different special events with assemblies or after school events that all students are welcome to, and also some more clubs that are starting up. So there's a recycling team that works every week to go around the school, collect that, a kindness club that meets every week to do acts of kindness around school. Dancing Dolphins is a new one where students can get exercise and dance with each other after school, guided by a teacher in it. So lots of different opportunities for students to get excited about. We're looking at starting up robotics clubs now and having some other STEM or coding options as well in our school too, and just building out the partnerships for those. And overall, it's having an impact that we can see pretty positive. Right now, we have over 82% of students attending regularly. That's more than 3% than where we were at this point last year. Our goal is to still reach to 5, but that's an encouraging start and continues a trend really where Minter's regular attendance has just been continuing to increase over the past 3 years or so now, and we want to keep building that trend and riding that momentum forward. Ways that we're going to do that, looking forward for next steps, are planning a month-long attendance campaign in early 2026. We've seen some other PSD elementary schools that have done this, really emphasizing having perfect attendance for that month, or having in a classroom where you've got over 90% of your students there. Again, just encouraging that. We know people are going to be sick or things will come up, emergencies, but encouraging as much as possible students to be in school and then celebrating with them individually and as a whole when they're doing that. We're also continuing to partner with families to identify and remove obstacles for individual students who aren't attending regularly. That could be helping with transportation or having a special incentive, like if a student who's really into Marvel, so a student gets a Marvel sticker every time that they're here on school each day is just that little extra boost for them to get up and at school in the morning when it can be tough to do so sometimes. So we've been encouraged by the growth there and looking forward to it continuing to grow, similar to with our math and language arts goals, just changing those, tweaking those, revising them throughout the year to make sure we're getting closer and closer towards our goals and really closer and closer towards all of our students being um, proficient or distinguished in their academics and knowing that they can be successful, which really ties into our final slide closing out for today is something that our students here at Mentor do every morning after they do the Pledge of their Allegiance. This is our Kids at Hope mantra. So they read this in their classes together. I am a kid at Hope. I am talented, smart, and capable of success. I have dreams for my future, and I will climb to reach those goals and dreams every day, which really is our way of embodying our PSD mission for our students, which is for all of them to feel inspired and empowered every day for every student who's here at school. Thanks for watching this presentation, and please feel free to follow our progress throughout the year on our district website as our SIP plan continues to be implemented.